Welcome to another episode of From Guest to Great. And today we have Dou, who's going to be sharing with us, a little bit of tips and tricks. We're fortunate he's also been a division director, so he's performed at one of the highest level when it comes to building membership and engaging with people. So Dou, please tell us about yourself, a little bit about yourself, who you are, your clubs, etc.
All right, no, thank you so much, Sean. As introduced, Lo Mashitisho, I'm currently club president at Naledi Polokwane Toastmasters Club, and I'm serving in the treasury and vice president of membership at Komani Toastmasters Club. So that's the Toastmasters portfolio, really. I've handled a number of roles in a number of different spaces, but ultimately what brought me to Toastmasters was the need, not so much to develop my communication skills. That was a sort of secondary benefit to joining, but it really was learning from from a volunteer organization how to better run volunteer organizations, and that really was how I joined the space. Many lessons attached to that, directly speaking to that, and improvements in communication. We're at now 5 years later, and I'm still an active member. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Thank you. You touched on something, and I'm going to go back to it, is that it's a volunteer organization, and it can be quite difficult to lead in a volunteer organization. How did you get it right? What's the one thing that you did that would have us saying, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's, I joined in the year where the theme for our district was every member matters. And I mean, that resonated with me. We've had a number of themes over the years and they've all resonated differently, but that was my first. And so I do have a bias towards it, but it's really keeping members at the core. Are your members kind of hinting that a 2-hour meeting is too long? Then find a way to address the 2-hour meeting problem. Are your members saying that they would really like to be able to connect online because they don't want to be they're in other places in the country, but they really want to still remain active at the club, form hybrid meetings to make that possible? Are members complaining that it's too expensive? Find a way to get them to pay in smaller monthly payments so they don't feel the pinch of a once-off payment. Are members saying that they don't know how to run Basecamp? Find a way to get Basecamp material to them that doesn't make Basecamp the hurdle. So it really is about finding out what it is that members are looking for in the club. Why did they join? What are their goals? And building an environment that is customized to solve the problems that they have. And I think for me, that's been the biggest thing, especially over the last 9 months, where we've been rebuilding Naledi Polokwane, is just staying true to what the members' needs are. And even if you're going to dumb down the whole experience just so that the members' problem is solved, done a whole lot, and you've produced a lot of value for them. And the bells and whistles, it's nice to have, but if the members' needs aren't met, you're not going to get any buy-in from them.
I agree with that. For me, the one district mission, or not even district mission, but the one district leader, when she said, this is the message I'm putting out there, that resonated with me, was building a legacy, and that was by Angie. And it's still to date, I'm like looking at like building a legacy. So yeah, I think we all have one or two leaders that genuinely shape our outlook. You obviously, in the previous year, you were division director, and then you've come back to being president in the one, and then VPM and treasurer in the other. What attracted you to these roles and going back to these specific roles?
So I mean, for Komani, it really had to do with making sure we had a functional executive. And so I took on the treasury role when the club member who was to be treasurer was struggling a little bit. They had some improvements at work. They got a promotion, which is what often happens with Toastmasters. And so I was in there. But also with Komani, one of the big goals we've been trying to work on over the years is increasing the membership base. And so I really wanted to focus on that challenge. Komani is also a unique club. It is one of the few clubs in the district. There isn't another club around it for about 256 kilometers or thereabouts. And so growing a club in an environment like that poses very specific challenges that I've always just found very interesting to engage with. But Naledi Polokwane, it's a slightly different situation. So, I mean, I was headhunted to come into the leadership at Naledi Polokwane back in 2021. And that was because, I joined Komani first, and then Naledi Polokwane was being rebuilt around 2021. And when they heard, when the leadership at the time heard that I was based in Polokwane, they thought, there's our guy. But what has kept me active as a member of Naledi Polokwane is I really buy into the vision for what the club aims to do. And it's not just the Toastmasters vision of building confidence and creating better leaders, but really had to do with more why that happens to be important for the city, which is the city of Polokwane. There are very few spaces in Polokwane itself where you're going to get a chance to grow as a leader, develop your speaking skills, and have a safe space to learn organization development, really. We've got KPIs, we've got the stakes, but it's not high stakes, it's not cutthroat. You learn, you rotate, you're doing it for a year, you figure some things out, you bomb out on others. And I really like that for Polokwane. The city's got a lot of, biggest employer is government. And one of the places where you begin to develop capacity for this business development is when volunteer spaces incubate that talent and that ability. I happen to believe that, and that's why I've stayed really involved in Naledi Polokwane, and really done the most over the years to make sure the club stays functional. A bit of a long-winded response, but that's why I'm at the two different clubs.
No, I get you. I can feel the passion. For me, I can feel the passion, and one of the things that you genuinely said, or what you said that I resonated with is, and I always tell people, Toastmasters is where you get to learn real life experience and practice without having real life consequences. It's always been one of those. So I always encourage people to take those up. Now, you said, Komani, how do you guys attract new members to your club? Because like you said, it's got unique challenges. So how do you attract new members?
So we've tried a number of things. Some years it's been more successful than others. I'll tell you the best way to get new members in a place like Komani. So Komani is the kind of place where everything still happens by word of mouth. So until Sean tells his good mate while they're having coffee at work that this is a space I've really grown and developed in, really difficult to get anyone else to bite on them, especially given the current economic circumstances in the country where Komani is positioned economically. So the best way to get members that stay is if they have a physical connection to someone in the town. So that's the best way. The next, and there's a number of reasons why that works, but I don't want to get into that right now. The next other approaches that we've used is running Facebook campaigns. That has been really useful in terms of generating awareness that the club's work exists, and generating interest. And sometimes from that interest, you get people who are interested in biting. I know one of the least effective ways to get things going was running a club website. So that I can say off the bat, save yourself the money, save yourself the effort. It doesn't really draw in as many people as you'd like it to. And I also think, just to go back to that first point, I think having that physical connection to someone is just really important for membership growth. I think also because a lot of the times it's not the big gestures of support that matter. It's the little nudge that arrives at 9 o'clock in the evening when you really don't feel like prepping another speech. And someone comes in to say, look, man, don't be too hard on yourself. I bombed out at 30 seconds in my first. Take it easy. And when someone's just like, sure, I don't know if I'll be able to really work on this project. Well, you've got someone, I really don't know why this matters to me. And you just got someone in sort of 2-minute conversation says to you, look, rather try this this worked for me. I think it will work for you. Let's go with that. I think that's been really useful there.
I agree with you, and I think this is a powerful tool we don't utilize enough. These little pins and having our members wear these. This is where people start asking, "What is that?" Like especially in a peer setting. So I would encourage clubs, if you guys can get your members pins. It's you can get these vouchers, CFR vouchers, and utilize the CFR vouchers to get pins. We did that in our year. And the other thing that you said, which I love, and I recently saw somebody do something like this was, and I need your hot take on this one, was where they had a bring a buddy day, where you bring a friend or two to our club meeting. So I'm yet to see the results, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, once again, if you've got an active member base and they haven't already exhausted their buddies, that works. But in spaces where people have known about the club, so there's a number of very famous stories within our districts here in Southern Africa where people didn't join clubs until like 6 months of nagging from their friend. And then they joined the club. It's just like, oh gosh, man, if you don't want to join, at least come for the food. And so the person comes for the food, and then they realize, oh, okay, not so bad. And I mean, where I'm positioned, what has really worked wonders for Naledi Polokwane, and I think it surprised me when it happened, was having a space where physical contact was possible. And I say it's possible because what I've often found is that new members join the club and they really want the physical interaction. And there's a lot of soft conversations that happen in a physical interaction that just don't happen when you're online. I've been doing online club meetings for at least 4 years now, and I know the differences between the two at this stage. But just any physical point of contact with a person seems to make a big difference. So with Naledi, when we restarted activities around October last year, we made a number of changes. The biggest change was, meet me in person at this location at this time. I'll always be there. And that gave people space with like, okay, I'd rather drive in. And we had some really crazy instances. We had people driving in 60 kilometers to attend club meetings. In some cases 80 kilometers to join our club meetings, and I actually had to tell them, I don't think the commute is a safe commute. If you've got an internet connection that's reliable, let's rather just do that, because I just get genuinely worried about members. We finished the meeting at 7 and they're going to be on the road for about another hour and a half before they get home. But that's what the promise of a physical and it works out really well. And for me, that's always been the big one. And I think I did genuinely reaching out to members to find out what their needs are. So, if I have a club member contact me and they say, gosh, I've got a wedding coming up, can you meet me at 7 o'clock tonight over a coffee? I'll cover the cost of the coffee. I'll say, I won't drink the coffee, make it a beer, and you've got my attention for an hour. So, those sort of things have worked out really well. But it's been able to meet with people, meet with them at the point of their need, and address that, and sort of slowly building the brand. I think sometimes we don't recognize how long it takes to grow. This isn't a microwave exercise. It does require some commitment. It takes time. It takes quite a bit of effort as well. But that's my hot take on Bring It Plus.
I take it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
And I've become an advocate for you're either gonna go online or in person, and I love the in-person interactions. And we've had a club where we finish at 9 and people still have to drive for like an hour to Boksburg all the way to the other side, but they would rather still come here. And we're looking to shift our time just by 30 minutes to accommodate those people. And we've seen a shift. In-person meetings add value that I can't for some unknown reason I can't put that to online. Like I'm struggling to get that same value online as I would in person. But Yeah, so I agree with you, and
I'm going to jump in there, Sean. And I remember saying this to one of our club leaders. The biggest difference between online club meetings and in-person club meetings is look at the amount of small talk that happens. And if you could actually quantify it on a graph, you get way more small talk out of an in-person interaction than you're going to get out of online. I mean, look at how many club members are online the minute after the meeting is over.
Mm.
You know, it cuts out almost immediately. And if you take an in-person interaction, there's the walk to the car, there's the walk to the toilet, there's the walk to help me pack up and move equipment back to where it belongs. And in those interactions is where those, those little gems come out about what my experience was, etc. and so forth. So when someone can replicate that in the online environment, whether they make it a 15-minute coffee at the end of the club meeting, so people don't just drop off the call, or little innovations like that, just to bring the small talk back in, it begins to bring back the value that those in-person interactions provide.
You've given me an idea. At my next online club meeting, we're having a breakout room, or at the end, we're having breakout sessions. You've given me ideas.
And I mean, and you can grow in that by matching people by industries. You've got a young accountant, you've got someone who's a senior accountant in the club, put them in a breakout room. You've got someone who's into some battery-related innovation and someone who's a mining manager. Put them in a room together. You have to be a bit more intentional about it because you're trying to force connection, in essence. But that's really, for me, the biggest difference between the two meetings. I don't think people do it for the food. I don't think people do it for the vibes. It's actually just the nature of the conversations are significantly different between those two meetings. So that's me throwing some numbers at it. But yeah.
If you invite me to your physical club, I'm there for the food, guys. Make sure there's food. I'm there for the food. Joe's there for the drinks. I'm there for the food. So, but anyway, how do you make, you touched on it a little bit in terms of the meeting, but how do you make sure that new members feel welcome and integrated into the Toastmaster journey? How do you get them to be integrated?
Yeah, so, and this is, for me, one of my proudest innovations in the last 6 months. One of the things I used to speak about a bit during my my division director year was breaking the silence. And one of the things I'd noticed was, you have a new club member join. And I say notice, but, I'll give the short story. I had a member join our club. They were a member of the club for 4 months. And at the end of the 4 months, I'm just like, why aren't you renewing? And they said, I just don't see any value. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't see any value? You've got access to all these materials. What's going on? He says, access to what materials? And I'm just like, what do you mean access to what materials? And, this member says to me, well, I kept waiting for Toastmasters to send stuff to me. I'm just like, no, everything is available online. You just have to click a few places. So that's always been this experience I had in the back of my mind. So one of the things I've done is for all club members that join the club, coupled with something I remember seeing, what was that? There was a big direct marketing online innovation that came about a few years ago, but it's basically like creating email journeys. And so what I started doing was just beginning to build email journeys for new club members. Once you join the club, you'll get a welcome email from the club, and there's a register that shortly after that, you'll get an email that tells you what your first project is and gives those materials to you. At each point, I'm reminding members that these things are available on Basecamp. You don't need to wait for me to send it through to you. But just so that the silence is broken and you don't have these 4 months where someone is waiting for something, they're a new member. They don't know what to ask. They never know what to ask. And so you have to nudge them along. So that's one of the things I do. Is on a level 1, I put on this journey. Once they've completed their 1.1 project, I'll immediately send through their 1.2 project. I've simplified the method of that email. So it really is just a matter of filling the form, and it automatically sends them a template customized with their name and the documents that they need. It's a 30-second task on my side. It doesn't require a lot of administrative overhead. So that's the one thing for all level 1 members. And I find by the time someone's done with their level 1, they know how to tinker around. Basically, and life becomes a lot easier. And the other thing I found was also really useful, and it worked pretty much like a spark for us at Naledi, was we then set up standard scheduled mentor sessions. Weekly. And it was just like, look, between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock on this particular day, join the call. Ask whatever question you have, get off the call. If it's a 15-minute question and answer session, good for you. If it's a 5-minute question and answer, good for you. But we'll have a member available to call and to answer questions. I think those two things together have, really moved us tremendously towards having a club that's meeting members' needs more proactively, is breaking the silence a lot sooner, and you're able to pick up errors a lot sooner. So I'll say in the meetings, please wait for this email. If you don't get the email, let me know. Those sorts of things and stuff like that. But it's just so that you don't have these long periods of nothingness happening, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, or a month. And that helps someone feel like, oh, okay, I understand what the vision is here. I understand how we go about it. I understand it's a volunteer space, and all those sorts of things. And I think also, once you build systems and processes that are easy to maintain, it just makes it so much easier to plug someone else into them. And it doesn't become so individual dependent anymore. And I know volunteer organizations are always vulnerable to that, these key-man dependencies. But I think that's really what we've done at Naledi to secure that. We've used a bit of this at Komani as well, scheduling a mentor session to get in touch with people and those sorts of things.
No, I think that's great. Great. For me now, what I've seen is I got this from Transformers. They had mentorship Mondays. I think once a month they would have a mentorship session for specifically level 1, and I think a little bit of level 2. I stand to be corrected, but with level 1, they would purely have icebreaker days. So they would be taking you through what an icebreaker is supposed to be like, etc., etc. And they continuously engaged the members, and it was such a good initiative. At my other club, we took it and decided to have a Tuesday. It's a mentorship Tuesday where we are now bringing it back up, and we're doing that. So I think keeping the members engaged, it's a great way. And another thing that we did, or I'm playing around with at Ravoine, is making the program fun, and the agenda. If you can have a fun agenda, you're going to keep the members engaged, because up to level 2, most members are like, but the basics, and then you get to level 3 and 4, which now you're actively doing projects, like you're doing an HPL, you're facilitating, you get an opportunity to do a panel discussion, make that fun, make it part of the meeting. So that's what we tend to do.
And I think while you're speaking about that, another thing that I've done, and I've always really tried hard to make sure that I get a response from club members for this one, is asking them what their speaking goal is and actually getting an answer. There's 2 club members who've just had tremendous journeys with us. And a big part of that experience for me was just finding out, what's your goal? And they're like, oh, I've got a conference coming up. I'm like, fantastic. This is what you do for your Toastmasters journey. You can do the icebreaker, love it for you, great stuff. But, you can immediately then just skip over to this level 2 project, dealing with difficult audiences. Skip over to this other project, connecting with an audience through storytelling. Do this other project, active listening. So you developing the ability to listen attentively to the kind of questions coming your way. And then I remember I said to one club member, she was working on a keynote, and I said, well, think of it this way: keynote is 7 speeches put together. So let's get these 7 speeches built up and refined, and you can just put them together for your conference. Produced immediate value for them, and we've managed to keep their memberships active as well. And I think it's just a key thing. And sometimes club members have a speaking goal, I've discovered, but you want to get become clear about what it is that they're working towards. Because once they've got that in mind, you can really build a customized experience for them. And that really gets them really integrated, and they get the whole scope of the program fairly quickly.
Oh, no, that's great. So that's how you add value also to the members and you keep them engaged. Love that. You spoke about the feedback part, you didn't really say you have a specific channel. So how do you gather feedback from the members and how do you act on it?
Yeah, so feedback from members, I think one of the things we've always done is I'd ask members specifically what's working for you, what isn't working for you, and having those conversations. I think when you're in the habit of being in touch with members, and it's not, how can I say, it's not left up to this once-off experience that's done once every 3 months. I found that useful. And also catching in when, behavior is feedback as well. So when you see people no longer attending, trying to establish why the non-attendance is taking place early on rather than waiting for not seeing them for 3 meetings. We often have a session at the end of club meetings where we get feedback from members as well. What worked for you, what didn't work. And I think that has worked really well for us. I also just think keeping things short has been helpful. That was the thing our members had really struggled with in the past. There were like 3 presidencies where we were deciding, are we going to move the meeting from a Saturday to somewhere else in the week? I'm not joking. It took 3 presidents before eventually we were just like, cut it. We're going to do it. Whoever comes, and whoever doesn't. We were directly competing with Kaizer Chiefs and Pirates derbies and rugby derbies and weddings and graduations and funerals and birthday parties. And so, it took a while. I think, as the years and times have gone by, trying to act on it as soon as you can is probably the best bit of advice here that I found. If members are feeling like the journey is becoming a little bit stale, finding out, having discussions about these are the various options, putting it out to a vote to club members, which are things we've done, sharing the vote with club members. People just respond to any kind of novelty in many instances. So just vote and getting their voices heard on something speaks to that kind of novelty, keeps things fresh. And that's what has worked for us at My Lady and Komani as well.
Oh, love it. Love it. I think at least you guys, it's taking you 3 presidencies. It's taking us, we're almost at the 4th president, trying to figure out if we're going back in person or staying online. So but I think we've made up a decision. We just need to confirm the venue. So yeah. Nonetheless, I know that time is not on our side. I've got 2 more questions and then we should be good. What advice would you give to club officers that are trying to grow or build their membership base? Like, what's the advice you would give to them?
Yeah, I think one of the things I found in Toastmasters that I've really appreciated is just this focus on process. It becomes a bit more clear as you start getting into your area directorship and your division director. But just thinking about what is the actual process for someone visiting a club. What happens after that? Just as a process, what's going on? And oftentimes I find that, if you don't see anything happening, it usually means nothing is happening.
Yeah.
And it's not a deep spiritual thing. So first things first, when people contact the club via email, make a plan, get back to these people very quickly. That's a big game changer. If you have 30 leads coming in and 30 of them have a response within 3 hours, you've done some things for confidence in your brand and what the activities are at the club that will go a long way. And I know how this has made an impression on a lot of people. They might not respond to that email immediately, but the impression that you responded to them within 24 hours sticks with them, and they'll come back after 6 months and be like, I couldn't get back to you, but I really appreciated the fact that you guys got back to me as quickly as you did. So, I mean, first things first is, firstly, think about what your process is for people visiting the club. What journeys are you putting on, so they can get a better sense of what's going on. Secondly, prospect emails, definitely get on top of those. And the third thing, I've had some difficulty with this, and I'm busy trying to build systems for it. But stay in touch with those prospect emails for maybe 2 or 3 interactions before letting them go completely. People have busy lives. In a moment of inspiration, while they were attending some conference far outside Toastmasters land, they felt like, yeah, I need to get with this. And then life gets busy and they forget to respond to their emails. So definitely keep that going. A third thing that I know is actively done in Naledi Polokwane, and I'm really thankful to Njabula, one of our members, is just regularly sending out reminder emails. So 14 days before the meeting, there's a calendar reminder. 7 days before the meeting, there's another calendar reminder. And then, 3 days before the meeting, there's another calendar reminder as well. There's reminders in the groups, and it's just these nicely worded little reminders. Hey, come join us, be a part of the energy, be a part of the action, be a part of the growth, be a part of the development. I think if I distill it into a short response, it is just those 3 things. Once again, it really goes back to the idea: break the silence. Nothing being said, best believe nothing is going on.
And that's how you lose members, because they're not being engaged, So I definitely agree with that. And the calendar part, I can't stress it. I've been called out on this twice by a new member. He's like, I invited him from my one club to my other club, and when he came to my other club, he's like, Sean, it's not on my calendar. Why is it not on my calendar? I'm like, why are you fighting with me? But I understood, that if it's not on the calendar, most people will forget it because we've got busy lives. And then my last question to you is, you've held various leadership roles, and I think you guys were part of an interesting directorate, because that directorate was in charge of basically multiplying the division into 2 divisions, and it was an interesting one. And in hindsight, I got to see the amount of work that went into being a part of the directorate. So what advice would you give to people trying to get into leadership? Be nice, say nice things.
I mean, I always say, I think the 2 bits of conflicting advice I'll give here. And, the audience can do what they want with it. 1, don't overthink it. I think sometimes we don't realize how much growth happens through challenge. And we become so accustomed to attend this course, listen to this great speaker, you'll become great. And that's not how new leadership habits are formed. That's not how new leaders are created anywhere in the world. There's not a single learning development officer that will tell you that's how we create new talent and new leaders in our organization. You need exposure to the actual environment. You need to feel your heart beating while trying to solve a problem. And that's where the real leadership growth takes place. You've got a company, or you've got a small business, and you're trying to figure out how to better run some of your treasury functions. Offer to be a treasurer at a club. Just exposure to Toastmasters materials on those sort of functions ups your game significantly, especially in a space where you might not have any real basic training. So that's the first piece of advice I'll always offer. Don't overthink it. Put up your hand. It's not that deep. It really is just a year. Calm down. All right. Then the second one, which is a bit more on the conflicting side, is especially as you start moving up the leadership ranks inside Toastmasters, it becomes really important to have a sense of how much time you have available. So you have a capacity. And I say it's conflicting because, the one says jump in with both feet, don't ask too many questions. And the other says, I need you to have availability. I need you to know that you've got, 1 hour available once a week to sit down behind a laptop, maybe type up a few documents or that sort of things, or be on a few phone calls. Being clear about what your time availability is allows you to just be a lot more proactive in terms of the things that you need to achieve. the Toastmasters leadership experience empowers you in ways you may never recognize until the experience is done. You don't recognize the the depth of that leadership experience until you're at division level trying to hire a president to get new members on board in his club. You don't really appreciate the value of getting member payments in on time until you're at division director level and you realize we can't host the conference because we haven't had enough member payments coming through, and that becomes a challenge that needs to be addressed. And so there's some genuine challenges the space provides, and I think I'll remember one thing I said many years ago during a review meeting with our regional advisors was, I think one of the things that Toastmasters leadership does is creates a challenge, and there's oftentimes enough support to make sure no one really bombs out. When enough people make enough time available, solutions can be found. And then that's really the beauty of the space. And you get to form new relationships. I mean, I've had some truly incredible experiences, being in rooms that I know I would have never come anywhere near had it not been for people I knew in Toastmasters. Formed really tight relationships that have gone on to serve me beyond those leadership years, whether it's for a good laugh or just something thoughtful and insightful, to help me move forward on something that I'm stuck with. I think it's always been my big tagline. I don't share it very often, but when I joined Toastmasters, I had a small nonprofit dealing with a turnover of anything between 40 and 60K annually. Through the lessons I learned in leadership at Toastmasters, I've grown that base from, instead of just running one league, to managing 7 leagues. We're almost making 400,000 Rand in turnover annually. I've grown as someone who's really just tried to do everything themselves to become someone who knows how to go about supporting someone to help them help me. And trying to get that information out of a business course anyway was always going to cost me a pretty penny. And to have been able to achieve that kind of growth and development in a non-profit organization for 2,400 Rand annually, I don't know a better deal anyway. And I think that's, so on the leadership front, that's what I will say. Be aware of capacity. Don't overthink it. There's a genuine benefit. You don't realize it until it's there. But there's just so many things change because you've just raised that challenge for yourself. And met it in many ways.
Okay, great. Thank you, bro. I went a bit over time because I can keep having conversations with you. I think you're genuinely passionate about this organization, and I'm a little too passionate about it too. So we could go on for a while, but thank you. I might call you back for something else on this whole platform, but yeah, definitely excited. And I'm happy, man. I'm happy I am saying you're coming back because you disappeared from my circle of communication, so nonetheless, thank you.
No, I'm glad. And I'm curious to see who else you've got on the guest to great discussions. I think there's just tremendous depth in the space. Just every time I've had a chance to speak to people and just hearing some of the challenges, and you thought you were having a rough time, and then you hear what their challenge is. It's just like, yeah, you know what? I'm far better off. But there's just a lot of opportunities, and I'm thankful that you archiving this information, putting it out there. Because it's something that I know someone will find great use for. It might not be in this current year, and I know there'll be lots of value in this current year. But you'll have someone coming to you like 4 years down the line, like, no, that discussion really did it for me. But
it's like next year there might be like Chiefs is playing CAF. They're now playing there. All of a sudden, I must make time for Toastmasters and I must make time for Chiefs. What do we do? But yeah, no, I get you, man, and thanks. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your evening.